Hey, I'm Shane. We're in Shane's Law. Today we're here with Ashley, one of the attorneys here to talk about one of her recent client victories. Ashley, tell us about this case. What happened?
So this is scary, more so than your usual rear end, because it's a rear end case. Okay. But it was at such a high velocity, the other driver's car ended up almost entirely under our client's car. It lifted them up.
What do you mean by that? They went. What was our client in?
Not a pickup truck, like a mid-size, a mid-size SUV.
All right, and then the other car went underneath them?
But yeah, shoved them up and was completely underneath them.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, so scary for our client, but even more scary for the driver.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes in cases like that, they call it torpedoing, is actually the term the insurance company uses. And there won't be a ton of damage to the torpedoed car because the vehicle went up underneath them. Now, there's some damage to the undercarriage, but visibly, it doesn't look that bad at all.
And this is a good example of that. If you looked at pictures of the car, it didn't look like it was in a wreck.
Yeah.
If you looked at pictures of the underside, you could see things hanging down. There was problems. But this was a car valued at $28,000 and they totaled it. That's how bad the damage was.
Well, and we've seen in those cases though, people are like, it doesn't look that bad. And everybody try to argue based on pictures, versus facts. That's what I'll say. Or pictures, I don't want to say pictures can be manipulated, but they don't show the whole story.
They definitely are, because if you looked at pictures of this car, you wouldn't say there was $28,000 worth of damage.
And then they totaled it.
And they totaled it out and paid them, that value. So it's got to be pretty bad damage to be worth just writing a check for $28,000 to the person versus fixing it.
Yeah, and honestly, vehicles aren't designed to spread that force out that way, is what I'll say. Vehicles are designed for rear end collisions, and everything is designed on that, forward, backward momentum, not this
springing
up in the air kind of deal, right? So what happened to the client? What happened there?
Went to the hospital right away, started treatment. This case was particularly difficult throughout treatment simply because we couldn't figure out what was wrong.
Right.
She had a lot of pain to her neck and back, which is pretty stereotypical,
pretty common,
but also her right shoulder. And nobody could figure it out. I mean, we had an MRI done. The MRI didn't show anything.
Okay. Which sometimes that happens because there's a lot of little stuff in the shoulder, but
there's a lot.
Usually they expect it to show something, right?
Exactly. In her case too, there might have still been a lot of fluid around the capsule, and that's going to prevent good imaging, quality imaging, so you might not pick up on any tears. CQ, my case manager, myself, kind of dug down and kept finding different specialists, seeing if someone else was willing to try something different.
So what kind of treatment did she have that wasn't working? Because normally it would seem like you'd have an MRI, you'd have some PT, maybe some cortisone.
So she had an MRI. She did have physical therapy. The pain wasn't improving at all. They did try injections. Turns out she had a pretty severe allergic reaction that sent her to the hospital.
Wow. Okay.
So we got to the point where doctors were just like, hey, it is what it is. You're stuck with it. We don't know what's wrong.
Well, that's bad.
And I was unhappy with that answer.
Yeah.
You have someone who did not have pain in this part of their body before the accident, and they have pain now. There's got to be something traumatic going on.
And there's got to be something they can do, right?
And you got to find the right doctor that's willing to keep asking that question and trying different things until they figure it out.
Which is one reason why we look for what we call patient advocate doctors, right? We look for doctors who aren't just going to look at a lab report and say, well, it looks like you're fine, and kick you out the door.
Or just prescribe medication month after month.
Which all of us, everybody's bumped into that doctor.
Yeah, it's not fixing the problem.
And they look at you and they're like, no, you should be good to go. I don't see any reason why you'd be sick. And you're like, well, too bad.
And her scenario too is important because she was out of work this whole time following the accident.
Oh, wow.
She couldn't work because of her pain. So she's like, I need an answer. I need to fix it so I go back to work. I can't fix it until I know what's wrong. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But I do know it was inhibiting her ability to work. And that was, causing a financial strain.
So was it just pain or was it also mobility?
Mobility. A lot of mobility issues moving overhead. We ended up trying to do movement so she went under anesthesia and they try and manipulate the joint that way.
Okay, and usually they do that when they think something's just sort of stuck.
Like frozen shoulder, trying to break everything up.
And they move it. It's pretty violent.
Which is very violent. I've watched a few YouTube videos and it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
But that didn't work.
Okay.
So we finally got her to a third or fourth doctor at this point.
Wow.
And they did an MRI with contrast, and suddenly we could see all the issues.
Really?
Yes. So we finally got answers for her. Unfortunately, the policy is not big enough at this point. We've gone through so many doctors that we can't afford the surgery now. The upside is she does have full health benefits. She's able to get it under her own insurance policy, which is the plan. Side note, she also needs neck surgery.
Wow.
Yeah. The treatment that we got there, she basically just exhausted everything up until surgery. I don't like that we didn't help her heal, but I'm glad that we were able to actually get her those answers that nobody was willing to keep digging for.
Right.
So she knows what she has to do now moving forward.
Which could easily happen. She could be one of those people who ends up just chronically, you've got a bad shoulder.
Yeah.
And every doctor you go to see says you got a bad shoulder.
I know it's bad. I live with it.
Yeah.
That doesn't help anybody. So she's got answers now. We've given her all of her medical documents to take to her, and we've sent it over to her provider, trying to help as best we can, just set her up for that next step. after getting her this policy
So
limits.
since once we finally figured it out, then the insurance company was like, okay, well, we'll tender all our policy.
It was great because of what we were talking about with property damage. I thought we might have a fight here. I thought they might
Right.
say, oh, it couldn't have been that bad. The car looks fine. That wasn't the case. They tendered in less than a week. It's the fastest case I've ever had tendered. They looked at it and they said, listen, her medical bills are extraordinary. She's clearly severely hurt. There was significant damage under the car.
I was going to say that's one area where they're actually not supposed to use property damage against people, is in torpedo type cases, is the guidance they've been given out. And it sounds like in this case they followed
They
that.
did, yeah, they did. Very quick tender. I was surprised, and that's saying a lot, being that this is what we do all day long.
Especially since it took a while to find injuries. What we've noticed a lot of times is you've got shoulder or knee. You're not real careful. The insurance company tries to say something else caused those.
That there's and they didn't even ask for her prior medical history.
Because it
Usually
took a
they
while
do.
to find.
Yeah.
And that's always my fear. You know, is a case like this where it takes 6 months, 9 months, a year to find the actual injury. Even though the client's been treating the whole time, I worry the insurance company is going to come in and attack that delay. But in this case, they did not.
No, they didn't. I'm very pleased with the insurance company, which is not something you'll hear me say frequently.
My guess is the client in this case must have been very diligent and continually going into the doctor. Continually reporting her pain was the way it was and not minimizing it or just getting tired of going to the doctor. Yeah. It sounds like she really was invested in her treatment.
She definitely had treatment fatigue. She was getting tired, and I don't blame her. You're not getting any answers. It becomes
difficult.
Yeah, there's a word I want for it, but I can't think of it.
It becomes difficult to continue going on and seeking answers.
Just discouraging. Yeah.
Right.
But
because every doctor says, I don't see anything wrong. I don't see why you're okay. And we've seen clients in the past begin to sort of doubt, is there really something wrong with me?
And I think that's where we come into play, and we're really beneficial. We're not just here to fight the insurance company. I pushed her to keep going and keep getting it checked out, because this, when I get a client who's like, I'll just live like this, we start talking about, okay, well, what's the next 20 years look like? Yeah. How are you limiting your life? Is this really feasible? And is it worth it?
And if you can't work, then the answer is no.
And then, helping her find other experts was a huge part too, because just being in that kind of pain, then having to try and find your own doctors.
And navigate through that.
Exactly. It's got to be exhausting. So I was happy that we could at least help her figure out what was wrong.
And that MRI with contrast showed a huge, and I know everybody worries about that, right? Because to do that, they got to put dye in your shoulder. They inject you and put dye in so they can see different things, which sounds scary. You're going to put what in me? But in this particular case, it sounds like it made a world of difference.
It did. We were able to see a lot that we could not see before, and pinpoint what the issues were.
Well, I'm really glad the doctors, one, you were able to help her find a doctor, continue to look for the cause.
Yeah.
Two, that doctor talked to her and explained why they needed the second MRI, because I already had an MRI. What difference is this going to do?
Yeah.
And she got it, and at least we were able to find out what happened to her. Huh?
Exactly.
Well, it sounds like while it might not be the exact scenario we would love to have, it sounds like we fought as hard as we could, got her, figured out what was going on, and gave her a plan to get better.
Absolutely.
And then got all the money the insurance company had on this case.
Every dime.
Well, so Ashley, it sounds like she was really lucky to have you on our team. And for all of our listeners, if you like these client victories, hit like and subscribe down below. And remember, Charlotte, if you're in pain, call Shane, 980-999-9999.
In pain, so I call Shane, 980-999-9999. In pain, call Shane.